Hi guys, welcome back to Remote Learning, and we are picking up where we left off from Macbeth. Before the holiday, we'd done really well to get to the end of Act 1, and at the end of that last week, I set you a kind of GCSE extract type task, which if you have managed to get done, that's great. If you haven't managed to do it yet, try and get it done by the end of this week. That'll be really useful. Today, though, we're picking up at the start of Act 2. And the whole story in Macbeth so far has been getting Macbeth in a position where he is prepared to kill King Duncan. Act 2, and the first scene of Act 2 is a few moments before he actually commits the murder. The murder happens off stage. We'll talk about that at a later date, why Shakespeare chose to do that. But in terms of the scene we're going to look at today, it's the scene where he is moments away from murder, and we see and we hear the way he feels and what he's thinking in that crucial moments, in those last crucial moments before he goes off to kill Duncan. So, our objectives today, well, first of all, is to read Act 2, Scene 1, which does include Macbeth's famous dagger speech, and ideally I would like just to understand what Macbeth is talking about as well. Obviously, it's always good if we actually understand what's going on in the language. So before we start the actual reading of the scene, I just want to kind of set the scene for you a little bit, just to go through what's going to happen in the next couple of minutes as we read through it. First thing to really bear in mind is the castle is deadly quiet at the start of Act 2. Pretty much all the festivities, all the partying, at that banquet that Duncan's been the kind of the guest of honour at, that's all finished, and basically everyone's gone off to bed. All the partying's over. We're just left with the kind of the aftermath of the party. There might be, if you're staging this, there might be wine bottles or glasses or plates kind of scattered around the stage. There might be that tablecloth still, just the debris of the party might be on stage. That's the kind of scene that you might be imagining. But the point is, it's absolutely silent. And this scene is the moment before Macbeth murders King Duncan, so we have this absolute dead calm. But what's surprising about this scene is how it starts. The scene opens with Banquo, Macbeth's best friend, on stage, with his young son Fleance, and we've got this little moment of this father and son conversation, deep in the night, which then Macbeth kind of stumbles in on. Macbeth's not really looking for Banquo. He's kind of just checking that everyone is where he needs them to be, which is basically in their bedrooms, behind their doors, so that he's got the freedom to prowl through the castle towards Duncan's bedroom. So he has this slightly strained conversation with Banquo before Banquo and Fleance leave the stage and they go to bed. That leaves Macbeth on his own, and then in the build up to the murder scene, he's waiting for the sign from Lady Macbeth, which has been a pre-arranged signal, which the bell's going to ring. So he has to just wait now on stage for that signal to indicate that she has drugged the guards. She's put the sleeping potions in the drinks, and they have basically become unconscious. And once that bell is rung, that is the signal to Macbeth to the coast is clear, and he can go and kill Duncan. So these bullet points on the slide here, I would suggest that you copy them down into your books, so you have a kind of a brief summary of Act 1, Scene 1 for revision purposes, so you know what's gone in the scene when you come back to look at it in a later date. So if you want to pause the video here just to get down the notes from this slide, that'd be very useful, and then when you're ready you can move on. Okay, so as usual, we have the script in the original Shakespeare on the left-hand side and the modern translation on the right. Okay, And I'll read it to you. You follow it with me, please. Enter Banquo and Fleance with a torch before him. Banquo. How goes the night, boy? Fleance. The moon is down. I have not heard the clock. Banquo. She goes down at 12. Fleance. I take it 'tis later, sir. Banquo. Hold. Take my sword. There's husbandry in heaven. Their candles are all out. Take thee that too. A heavy summons lies like lead upon me, and yet I would not sleep. Merciful powers restrain me in the cursed thoughts that nature gives way to in repose. Enter Macbeth and a servant with a torch. Mrs. Banquo still speaking. Give me my sword. Who's there? Macbeth. A friend. Banquo. What, sir, not yet at rest? The king's abed. He hath been an unusual pleasure, and sent forth great largesse to your offices. This diamond he greets your wife withal, by the name of most kind hostess, and shut up in measureless content. Macbeth. Being unprepared, our will became the servant to defect, which else should free have wrought. Banquo. All's well. I dreamt last night of the 3 weird sisters. To you they have showed some truth. Macbeth. I think not of them. Yet, when we can entreat an hour to serve, we should spend it in some words upon that business, if you would grant the time. Banquo. At your kindest leisure. Macbeth. If you shall cleave to my consent when 'tis, it shall make honour for you. Banquo. So I lose none in seeking to augment it, but still keep my bosom franchise and allegiance clear, I shall be counselled. Macbeth. Good repose the while. Banquo. Thanks, sir. The like to you. Exeunt Banquo and Fleance. Macbeth to the servant. Go, bid thy mistress, when my drink is ready, she strike upon the bell. Get thee to bed. Exit servant. Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not, fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat oppressed brain? I see thee yet in form as palpable as this which now I draw. Thou marshallest me the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. My eyes are made the fool of the other senses, or else worth all the rest. I see thee still, and on thy blade and dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. There's no such thing in this bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Now over one half world nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse the curtained sleep. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings, and withered murder alarum by his sentinel the wolf, whose howls his watch. Thus, with his stealthy pace, with Tarquin's ravishing strides, towards his design moves like a ghost. O sure and firm set earth, hear not my steps, which way they walk, for fear thy very stones prate of my whereabout, and take the present horror from the time which now suits with it. Whilst I threat, he lives. Words to the heat of deeds too cold breath gives. A bell rings. I go, and it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell. Exit. And that's the end of the scene, guys. So obviously some language in that is quite complicated, some references that are difficult to understand. But as always in Google Classroom, I will have the No Fear Shakespeare translation available to you, so you can find this page. It's on the screen here, but if it's a bit too small to read, then you can find it on the PDF that will be attached in Google Classroom. What's going to happen now is I'm asking you a question, okay? And I want you to think about what you believe this speech shows about Macbeth's psychological state before the murder of King Duncan. Now, before you answer this question, I want you to watch a performance of the scene, of the speech, which I found for you on the internet and is in this video. So if you could think about your feelings about this question, and what kind of mindset, what kind of emotional, psychological state is Macbeth in. But before you answer the question, watch a professional actor deliver the speech, and then obviously when he's finished, you can then write your answer to this question. But we'll come to that in a minute. Okay, so hopefully you'll really enjoy the next couple of slides.
Is this a dagger which I see before me? The handle toward my hand. Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not fatal vision sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind? A false creation proceeding from the heat oppressed brain? I see thee yet, in form as palpable as this which now I draw. Thou marshalledst me the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. Mine eyes are made the fools o'er the other senses, or else worth all the rest. I see thee still, and on thy blade and dudgeon gouts of blood which was not so before. There's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Now over the one-half world, nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse the curtained sleep. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings, and withered murder, alarmed by his sentinel the wolf, who howls his watch. Thus, with his stealthy pace, with Tarquin's ravishing strides towards his design, moves like a ghost. Thou sure and firm set earth, hear not my steps, which way they walk, for fear thy very stones praise of my whereabout, and take the present horror from the time which now suits with it. Whilst I threat, he lives. Words to the heat of deeds to cold breath gives. I go, and it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell.
So, guys, what do you think the dagger speech reveals about Macbeth's psychological state before the murder of King Duncan? That's the question. I think there's a couple of things you should probably zoom in on. First of all, the fact he's questioning his his vision. He's like seeing something that isn't there. No one else can see the dagger. He's imagining it. It's something that as he says, his heat oppressed brain is creating this vision. Why is his brain heat oppressed? What's that language convey or suggest about his psychological state? That word oppressed is particularly powerful. Um, he talks about how his eyes are made the fools of other senses. Okay, um, or perhaps worth all the rest, which means that you know either his eyes are being tricked, that this dagger isn't there, or his eyes have got like special powers, and that they can see more or they can sense more than the rest of his senses can sense. So it's like there's a slight contradiction there. Which is it? Are his eyes being tricked, or his eyes got has he got like super natural vision or something here? He talks about the bloody business. Okay, what's that suggest about his mindset? What he's thinking about? The fact that the dagger gets blood on it, gouts of blood appear on the dagger. So it starts off as a clean dagger, but then as the speech develops, gets bloodier and starts to kind of have these blood stains all over it. He talks about the idea of half the world, nature seems dead. So like he's talking about night here, the idea under darkness, when the sun is set, it's a kind of makes nature seem like death, like being in the grave. So he is associating this time of night with the idea of death. And he talks about what's going on in people's dreams, wicked dreams and abuse, the curtain sleep. So people having nightmares, witchcraft is celebrated. So it's like witches are out at night, casting spells and doing sacrifices. What else is going on at night? Well, the wolves are howling. So there's a kind of predatory animal that's hunting at night, his stealthy pace. And then he brings in an interesting reference here with Tarquin's ravishing strides. Tarquin is a famous Roman soldier, a general, who in a kind of legendary act of evil, he raped one of his friend's wife while he was staying at her castle. So that was called the Rape of Lucrece. It's a famous Roman story. So Tarquin is the villain in that story, and Macbeth here is basically saying he's feeling like he's associating with Tarquin, who's a very famous villain. It's like he then talks to the ground. He says that thou sure and firm set earth. So he's talking to the ground. He says, don't hear my steps. So there's possibly two things going on here. He doesn't want any witnesses. He doesn't want any kind of people to hear his steps. He's asking the ground to be quiet so that no one can hear him. Or he's asking total silence. Or he's asking to be ignored. He wants nature to ignore him, what he's going to do. So there's the two things there. Like one, hear no my steps, as in don't let anyone hear what's going on. So there's no one going to be a witness or come out and disturb this. The second one is that he wants nature to kind of ignore what he's going to do. And then he uses opposite ideas here. His while I threat he lives, words the heat of deeds too cold breath gives. So the idea that while he talks the talk, he might talk himself out of it. There's a sense here that maybe he's getting cold feet, or he's possibly thinking about not doing it. But just at that moment, the bell rings, and he says, "I go and it is done." Okay, now is that the true nature of murder? Well, it's done. It's complete, or is he being a little bit simplistic there? Is he misunderstanding or not thinking about the nature of the crime he's going to commit? The bell invites me. Interesting verb, invites. What's that suggest about his mental state? And then at the final little couplet, a little bit of poetry at the end of this speech. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell. So you might even want to think about, how that little bit of poetry, what that suggests about his state of mind in this moment of the play. So have a think about that. Write a paragraph what you think the dagger speech reveals about Macbeth's psychological condition, and when you're happy with everything, you can upload your work to Google Classroom, and then I'll be able to look at it for you. Okay, guys, have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll be setting you with some more Shakespeare work Macbeth tomorrow. Take care now. See you now. Bye bye.